He survived 2 surgeries. He opened his eyes, but the first thing King Von asked for, was his gun. What happened next will leave you questioning everyone around him. Beat pause, was this really a random shooting? Or was King Von betrayed by the people closest to him? A total of 6 people were involved in a tragic incident, one of them being rapper Devin Bennett, known to the world as King Von. Today, the police finally released the official documents related to his case. According to a nurse who spoke with the police, King Von was revived at the hospital. He actually survived 2 surgeries. But things took a shocking turn after that. The nurse said that when she walked into the room, Von was already awake, looking around nervously as if searching for a gun. He had gone through intense medical procedures, yet seemed confused and anxious. After the second surgery, something unexpected happened. Von jumped off the bed and started fighting with the nurse, asking, "Where's my gun?" It appeared he went into shock, not fully understanding what was going on. Kayla, someone close to him, shared that Von's mother did not even know this had happened. Kayla only found out because she was at the hospital herself, and saw it with her own eyes. But the biggest concern in the case is the suspicion that someone from Von's own circle betrayed him. The police now believe he may have been backed by one of his own people. King Von had personal bodyguards that night, men who were paid to protect him, but surveillance footage showed something disturbing. When the fight broke out, all of his bodyguards ran away in the opposite direction, leaving Von behind. People are asking hard questions. Why was he left alone? How could his security let him walk up to a confrontation and get involved in a fight? That is not what they were paid to do. Their job was to keep him safe, not let him throw punches. Some say the guards should have made sure the other group like Quando Rando and his crew left the scene first. After all, Von was the reason everyone was at that location. He was the one bringing in money. He was the star, and the people with him were supposed to be there for his protection. There is also talk that one of the security guards might have done something shady. He even deleted his Instagram after the incident, which raised even more suspicion. Some people feel there is definitely foul play involved, even if they are not sure where it started. Police body cam footage added more confusion. Von's friends were clearly seen at the scene, but none of his bodyguards were around during the critical moments. Police also reviewed an interview with Quando Rando, where he explained his version of the events. He described how Von ended up on top of him during the fight, and even shared the last words Von said to him in that moment. To really understand what happened, you have to go back to the police report on the night Von died. The report starts with the date November 5, 2020. That night, Von and his team were heading to a club in Atlanta to celebrate the release of his album, Welcome to O Block. It was supposed to be a night of joy and celebration, marking a big moment in Von's career. But things quickly turned tragic. Von was used to danger. Growing up in O Block, he always knew the risks of being out in public. So when he went to the club, he made sure to travel with a strong crew, about 20 to 25 people, across 8 cars. Even Von's manager, known as 100,000 Track, spoke about the tight security. He said Von usually had at least 3 guards with him. One traveled in a bulletproof truck. And beyond the hired guards, Von's own team acted like protection too. They were close to him, loyal, and always ready to defend him. That night, everything was going smoothly until someone started texting Von. Around 2:30 a.m. As the crew was leaving the club, Von got a phone call. He stepped aside for about 5 minutes to take it, then returned to the group. Everyone was planning to go back to the Airbnb, as usual, but Von had other plans. While the team thought they were heading back to relax, Von made a sudden decision. He told his driver to go to another spot called Monaco Lounge. The twist: no one else on the team knew about this plan. It was completely Von's decision, and he went there alone at first. Later, the rest of the group found out where he went. Someone in Von's car, possibly his DJ, called and said, "We're here by ourselves. Where are you guys?" That was when everyone else rushed over to the new location. This one change in plan, choosing to go to a different club instead of going home, turned out to be the first step toward the tragedy that ended King Von's life. Inside King Von's black Escalade, it was just him, his driver, and one security guard. What many did not know was that their plans had changed, and no one told the rest of the team until they reached the new location, Monaco Lounge. Once Von's manager arrived there, something immediately felt off. King Von was not his usual self. Normally full of energy, that night Von sat quietly in the back seat with his hoodie up, focused on his phone. texting someone again and again. He looked distant, but his team, excited to continue partying, had no idea anything was wrong. King Von sat quietly inside the SUV, barely moving or saying a word. Time dragged on 30 minutes, maybe 35, and his stillness was impossible to ignore. Everyone around him could feel the tension. It was not just silence. It was a heavy, thoughtful pause. People who knew Von well understood that this kind of quiet meant something was on his mind. But what exactly? That remained a mystery. His manager, who had been nearby, started to grow concerned. After waiting for a while, he finally climbed into the SUV himself. Sitting beside Von, he looked over and gently spoke. "Von, come on, everyone's waiting for you inside." The words were not forceful. They were soft, like how you talk to someone you care about deeply. Von looked up, gave a small nod, and replied calmly, "All right, let's go." Even with that agreement, there were still things that needed to be handled before heading into the lounge. This club had a firm rule that everyone had to follow. No weapons were allowed inside under any circumstance. It did not matter who you were or what your name meant in the streets. The policy was strict. Because of that, Von's team wanted to be extra cautious. They instructed the security team to do a full sweep of the building before Von stepped foot inside. It was not paranoia, was protection. They needed to know that the inside of the venue was clean, that nobody inside had any weapons, and that Von could relax once he walked through those doors. The manager shared later how it all played out. "I got into the car with him and said, 'Von, come on, everyone's waiting.' And Von did not argue. He did not resist. He just nodded and said, 'All right, let's go.' That one moment said a lot about his state of mind. He was ready but carefully, cautiously at that point. The security detail went ahead to check the place. Their job was clear. Sweep the club from top to bottom. Look for any hidden threats, and make sure it was safe. It was routine, but it was also serious. Everyone was focused on the inside. Everyone thought the risk would be behind those doors, maybe from someone who slipped through, or someone hiding something. But what no one realized was that the real danger was not inside that building at all. It was right outside, just a few feet away. In the very place where everyone thought they were safest, the parking lot. That parking lot, dimly lit and wide open, had become a kind of waiting zone. People stood around. Cars came and went. Conversations happened quietly, but not everyone there had good intentions. And not everyone was just minding their business. Hidden in plain sight, there were eyes watching, plans being made, and movements that were far from innocent. Von's team had focused all their attention on what might happen inside, but the real storm was already brewing outside. Unseen, unspoken, and dangerously close. This moment shows how unpredictable the world around public figures can be, especially those who carry both fame and street history. Von was careful. He stayed in the SUV, waited, and made sure security checked the building first. But sometimes, danger comes from where you least expect it. You can plan for what's ahead. You can check what's in front of you. But the past, the tension that lives in the streets, that can follow you quietly and explode when you're not even looking. The story here is not just about caution, it is about how fragile safety really is when you live with a target on your back. Von's pause in the SUV, his calm nod, the decision to send security in first, these were all smart steps. Thoughtful ones. But no matter how many precautions you take, you cannot control everything. And that night, as guards moved inside to scan the venue, the true threat was already waiting outside. This moment wasn't just about entering a club. It was about trust, instincts, and timing. Von was a rising star. He had already been through so much and was now stepping into a different world: music, fame, and the weight of his name. Yet, even with success, the shadows of the past still loomed. That pause in the SUV, the long silence, the quiet agreement to move it, was all part of something bigger, a decision made in a calm moment, a step taken toward a future he hoped would be peaceful. But fate had other plans. And sometimes, no matter how carefully you move, the streets find a way to follow. At the same time, just a short distance away, Quando Rondo was sitting in a parked car with his crew. Everything suddenly began to click. Von had been texting someone earlier, and now it looked like that someone had been Quando all along. The pieces of the puzzle were starting to fall into place, and the tension was beginning to rise. Von's security team was already on high alert. One of his guards was walking around the lot, carefully watching the surrounding vehicles. He wanted to make sure no threats were hiding nearby. As he checked the area, his eyes locked onto a familiar face. It was Quando Rando, standing quietly next to a white car, blending into the crowd. The guard knew this was not just a coincidence, was something more serious. Without wasting a second, the guard rushed back to Vaughn's SUV. He opened the door and leaned in, his voice firm but concerned. "Did you know Quando is out here?" he asked. Vaughn looked up, his face changing slightly, but he stayed silent. Before he could fully react, another one of Vaughn's close friends approached the vehicle from outside. He leaned into the open door and added, "Yeah, I just saw him too. So Anso's here. Right over there." In that moment, Vaughn did not pause to ask more questions or weigh the situation. He did not think twice. His instincts kicked in. Without saying a word, King Vaughn pushed open the door and leaped out of the truck. The quiet energy he had all night completely disappeared. Suddenly, he was full of adrenaline, moving with purpose and speed. His team was caught off guard. They tried to hold him back, shouting for him to stop, to wait, to slow down and think. But Vaughn was already ahead of them, moving faster than anyone had seen him move all night. It was as if something had been triggered deep inside him, an emotion, a memory. Or maybe just a reaction to something he could not ignore. All the calm that had surrounded him for the past half hour was gone. He had been sitting in the SUV for what felt like forever, quiet and to himself. Now, in just seconds, he was sprinting toward the parking lot with fire in his eyes. His crew followed close behind, still trying to stop what they could already tell was going to be a bad situation. In that moment, everything changed. He walked straight toward the white car, spotted Quando Rando, and locked eyes with him. Vaughn immediately started swinging. The two began fighting in the parking lot for about 30 seconds. Then, from behind the white car, Quando's friend Lil Tim appeared with a firearm and opened fire. King Vaughn was hit. His manager was also struck in the leg during the chaos. Some of Vaughn's crew were armed and fired back instantly, hitting Lil Tim and knocking him down just a few feet away. The sound of gunfire caught the attention of two off-duty police officers nearby who were working security. Another on-duty officer arrived from the opposite direction. On a 3-count over their radios, they opened fire, leading to even more tragedy. One of Vaughn's team members was killed during the exchange. Vaughn lay in the street, right beside Quando Rando. Some online believed Quando tried to steal Vaughn's chain, but Vaughn's manager, 100K Track, thought differently. He said Vaughn had no jewelry on at the time. Police records confirmed Vaughn was holding onto Quando, possibly using him as a shield. Track believed it was Vaughn's strength and instincts kicking in, he was not letting him escape. After the scene began to calm, Vaughn's friend Mewup ran into the street, hit Quando to move him away from Vaughn, and helped get Vaughn to a car. At the same time, Quando and his crew, including Lil Tim, got back into their white vehicle and sped to the hospital. On the way there, both cars, Vaughn's and Quando's, were briefly side by side on the road, heading to the same hospital. Vaughn had been shot 4 times, but he stayed awake. People in the car with him said Vaughn tried to keep everyone calm. Even while in pain, he told them, "Slow down, chill. I'll be okay, just get me to the hospital." From what those in the car said, it seemed like Vaughn would survive. He was calm and strong. At the hospital, doctors rushed him into surgery. He made it through 2 operations. But after waking up, things took a heartbreaking turn. A nurse walked in, and Vaughn, confused and scared, started looking for a gun, one that he never had. That detail, Vaughn searching for a gun in the hospital, only came out recently, in newly released documents. Yet 2 years ago, Boosie had done an interview saying Vaughn never carried a weapon that night. Boosie was frustrated. There was no reason for Vaughn to be with those people like that. He had security, real security should have stepped in. Boosie and others believed that if Vaughn had proper protection like he did back in Chicago, this could have all been avoided. Many fans now think that some of Vaughn's own people may have been the ones spreading the story that he had no weapon, and, sadly, that night, a night that started as just another party, ended in confusion, betrayal, and loss that continues to haunt the music world. News of King Von's death quickly spread, making national headlines. Officials later confirmed that one of the victims involved in the shooting was indeed King Von, a well-known rapper from Chicago who had been in Atlanta with his friends the night before. Authorities explained that 2 groups got into a physical fight, which quickly escalated into gunfire. As soon as people found out that Quando Rondo and Lil Tim were involved, their social media pages were flooded with questions and accusations. Quando Rondo later gave an interview where he tried to explain the situation. He said, "Everybody on my side has family, kids, moms, people that love them. All this stuff could have been handled differently. We could have settled it in music, made millions. It did not have to end this way." Even Lil Tim, the man who shot King Von, shared his side. He claimed that he acted only to protect Quando, whom he considered like a little brother. When he found out it was Von he had shot, he said, "Man, if Von hadn't done that dumb stuff that night, he'd still be alive. That's how I feel." Lil Tim also added that he never meant any disrespect to Von's family and said he was not chasing fame or attention. "I'm not on that clout chasing stuff. I'm humble. But the truth is, they started it. If that fight never happened, none of this would have." Lil Tim survived his injuries at the hospital, but the next day, police arrested him for the shooting. He faced several bond hearings, and each time the request was denied until March 2021, when he was finally granted bond at $100,000, which Quando Rondo paid. In August 2023, his lawyer confirmed that all charges had been dropped before the case even made it to trial, but that was only half the story. What happened next turned into one of the most intense cases in modern rap history. King Von's close friends, especially Lil Durk and other members from O Block, were not going to let it slide. In the months that followed, reports of retaliation surfaced. A major hit was carried out against Quando Rondo's crew in Los Angeles. Cameras caught the aftermath of the shooting. Tragically, one of Quando's closest friends, Lil Pab, was killed in the attack. Video footage captured Quando's emotional reaction. He was seen overwhelmed with grief, feeling the same pain Lil Durk felt when Von died. Soon after, Lil Durk released a diss track where he hinted at being behind the retaliation. In one line, he rapped, "They think I'm just a singer. Believe what you want, I got your folks hit." He even mentioned how Quando screamed after losing his best friend. In another feature, Durk rapped, "Look on the news, Quando was screaming." This only added more heat. Eventually, Lil Durk was arrested under suspicion of retaliation. Later, police documents were made public revealing who might have told law enforcement about Durk's involvement. The papers revealed body cam footage of a man, crying and panicking, offering to snitch to avoid jail time. The informant was Lil Ted, younger brother of DD Durk's right-hand man. Police had picked Ted up at a convenience store after finding a gun with an extended clip in his pocket. While being driven to the station, Ted broke down in tears. He begged the officers not to lock him up. "I swear, I'll tell you about the killings. Please, I'll tell everything," he said through sobs, desperate to avoid jail. In the holding cell, Ted continued crying, saying he just wanted to go home and was willing to tell everything he knew. At first, people assumed it was DDD who had snitched, because court documents only listed the last name. That sparked a wave of rumors, accusing DDD of being the informant. In response, a man named Fazo took to Instagram Live to clear things up. "Man, y'all don't know what's going on. Only the people in those courtrooms know the real story. Y'all spreading rumors without facts. Y'all saying crazy stuff like Voni snitch gang, but you don't even know what you're talking about. That's why I don't mess with anything legal. Y'all will get somebody locked up over lies." So now the question remains, did Lil Durk do the right thing by avenging King Von? Fans continue to debate. If you're a supporter of King Von, ask yourself, was justice served, or did it just spark more pain?